bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
Another exciting episode of Cap and No Cap. I am your host, Kevin C. Meggett. I'm here with Miss Janaea Butler. A lot of people don't know the history. I'm gonna explain it. The history of this show actually started with you, and it started with another person named Asha. Asha couldn't be here because of her work schedule, and the reason why is I'm a registered independent. You are registered Republican. And Asha's a registered Democrat. So the concept of this show was to bring three different ideologies together under one blanket. But the common thread that we all share is that we are all foundational Black Americans.
Absolutely.
So, welcome. This is still your show.
Thank you.
You have not, Mr. Andy King. Mr. Andy King was holding it down, like that was
As always.
Yeah, he was holding it down for Ash, and we have him. He's going to actually be our special guest. He's just doing it by way of broadcasting today. So we're going to chop up some good game. The name of this show is going to be called All About Politics.
Ooh,
all right, so
good one.
I hope to get it. The first thing I really want to talk about is the end. New York City is about to end. New York State, I think it's the federal government. Y'all could dive in where you feel necessary. Where if I'm messing up. But these mandatory mandates for this COVID stuff is about to come to a screeching halt, and they're about to end it. Any thoughts on that, Mr. King?
I think it's a wonderful thing. I think it's a way to bring people back to life and engage, help small businesses. But more importantly, relieve some of the stress that some of our children are enduring, and even the everyday New Yorker who is trying to go to and fro from work. You and I have talked about it in the past. Mayor Adams has to be in a place that he has to be the mayor for everyone. He can't be the mayor for some and not the mayor for others, and whoever is making the loudest noise, can trip up society any given moment in time. So to help people get a piece of sense of mind and energy and try to find a way back to life, whatever that new normal is. Some of these restrictions, I really believe, some was well intended, some were overkill, and some just did more damage than they did help. But we're in a place right now that we allegedly are growing back to let society come back together to function, hopefully better than it was before the pandemic.
I agree. I don't think it should have been mandated to begin with. My biggest concern at that moment in time was it lawful and constitutional, and the answer was no, because Congress is the only people that can pass laws. And so I got into a Facebook argument per se about that with respects to they were talking about abortions, and it was what's her name? Gillibrand?
Kristen Gillibrand.
Kristen Gillibrand. Right. So I was like, they were like, we're going to protect New York State is going to protect the rights of women be able to have an abortion. And I was like, well, I raised the question, what was the difference between the mandate? My body, my choice. What happened? You know, when you they don't like when you say it in reverse, because it's exactly the same. It's conceptually, it's the same thing. I'm supposed to be the president, CEO, and founder of my flesh and blood. And how dare you tell me what to do with my body? You know what I mean? And so the fact that it was never a law, it wasn't lawful. A mandate is a recommendation. I could recommend that you commit suicide. Are you going to go out and do it?
Well, gentlemen, I have to make the strong point that the Republicans were the ones
that held out,
that carried the flag and said no mandates from the very beginning,
right.
Because it's about living and let living. And let's just be clear about why the mandates are going away. The mandates are going away because the governors across America got with President Biden and said enough with the pandemic. They did the Jay-Z, we need to move past the pandemic. So it's not really that the pandemic has slowed down, or it's not really that it's doing better, that they just made, they voted to move past it. And then, so the problem now is that we've moved past the pandemic, and moved into war, right? And so I just find, Andy, I'm going to point at you, because I find that the Democrats, you know, they're dancing around, tap dancing, but coming up with no solutions to what we have. We have this gas at $100 a gallon. You know, we got inflation. Milk is $60 a carton, right? You know, so what's going on? And I want you guys to help me explain that, and especially you, Mr. King, that was with the Biden administration.
Well, you know, when it comes to Democrats and Republicans, people forget that you go back to the Johnson era, that most blacks were Republicans before they got switched over to the Democratic Party. And if you were to line up the views of black folks, most of them will line up with Republicans' views of being more stern, conservative, and figuring out how to manage and be in control of their own lives, which we built this country on. When you get to today's Democrat, it's all about agendas, not necessarily the agendas of the people who built this quote unquote republic and democracy, but those who have agendas to take it over, and not necessarily it's in the best interest of everyone on this planet. So when I watch some of the Democrats today, again, if you are a person that has a real value system, then your value system should be governing your decisions. But I've watched too many elected officials get pulled into agendas by lobbyists and everybody else and don't stand for anything. So you can't make a decision if you don't have a belief system in place that governs your thinking. You're just like a leaf in the wind. Whichever way the money flows, wherever the agenda goes, you're just going to stand on that side of the street. But we need the Democratic Party to identify people who are not trying to blow up the house, but figure out how do we build the house that it makes sense for everybody. And I applaud the Republicans, because one of the things they've learned to do is stick strong, stick together. Whatever the decisions that are made by Republicans, everyone's carrying the same flag. Comes to the Democrats, they burned each other down with no flag. So I just ask us all in this administration, the Biden administration, how do we make real decisions? Well, let's take all the 12,000 agendas out of the way. Let's take the funding and the money off the table, and then we can sit and have a real conversation. Because as long as money plays in place, then you're never going to make a real truthful decision, because you're letting the dollar cover every thought that you make.
That was the best. That's the best answer I've ever heard to something like that.
But
so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate it too, and it makes a lot of sense. But you're absolutely right that when you look at what's going on in the Ukraine, it's almost like, okay, it's like, let's turn the page. We're turning the page now off of the pandemic. And it's like, okay, now everyone's focused on Ukraine. And one of the things that, my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine. I don't want to sound like I'm desensitized or anything like that. But the reality, Mr. King, I'm not going to jump out a window. And the reason I'm not going to do that, because my people right here have been fighting gentrification. We've been fighting poverty. We act like poverty doesn't exist in America. And we're being overpriced. We're being priced out. Everything is going up. And like you said, inflation, everything is being inflated, but my salary is not. It's deflating. You know what I mean? So I'm put in a position where I'm trying to survive too. And truth be told, gentrification and we don't call it for what it is ethnic cleansing American style. So we can marvel over what happened in Germany, what Hitler did but that's happening right here, right now.
Sure is.
And there's where's the Ukraine's cry for my struggle? So I only mess with people that mess with me. That's just what it is. It's human nature.
You make a valid point. You make a valid point, and like I said, we're not trying to desensitize what's happening in Ukraine. The value of Ukraine on this earth, yes, though they have a value system, being the second largest country over there, whether they are major in providing supplies, whether it's corn, wheat, or potatoes, or metals for the wind farm, steel. However, that value doesn't need what we deal with in this country every day. And if they were going through it,
seem to be having some audio difficulty, Mr. King. We're gonna get back with you, but one of the other things I'm concerned is they turned the page with the Ukraine, but you brought something to my attention that I was really unaware of. No one's talking about the bombings that's going on in Somalia.
I always have a problem about war, right? Because war is targeted when we think about, we think about the people that, are getting hit, right? So they like in Ukraine, they want us to have compassion for the people that are getting hit. I'm seeing videos of people flying in the air to these bombs and real dramatic stuff, right? And they want us to have compassion for the people that are dying, right? But so what about in Somalia, right? And so now, but you don't want us to focus on Somalia.
Most people don't even know what's going on in Somalia.
Right. You don't want us to have any compassion. You don't want us to have any say. And therein lies my problem. Because then when you talk about a pandemic, these are plans. So let's distract them over here with, our peace with Ukraine. They already know about Russia.
Right.
And even with the, jumping on board and you just running out. I feel like as an American citizen that I need to vote for us to go into war. Our taxes, we're voting in it. But then again, we have to look at the military spending and why we have to put the right people in office at the right time because they could do stuff like this. We were so focused on Trump pressing that button. Every time he raised his hand, everybody said he's about to press the button. And nobody wanted to go to war.
Right.
But in a year into this administration, like I said, $100 a gallon gas, inflation, and now we're going to war. It seems like, and I don't put it past Putin that he's not going to throw something over here to knock us, silly for a little while. I don't put it past any of them that they're going to try stuff on American soil. Luke Oil is owned by them. Okay, so if you think about all the Luke Oils,
Question.
They could blow them things up.
Let's talk. So let's debunk some of these conspiracy theories that I may have, because this is the one conspiracy theory that I have, right, is that Trump and Putin, that's his boy. They close, and I can make an argument both ways, but the first argument I'm going to make is perhaps Putin and Trump were talking, and this was planned as well. But now to make the argument the other way, if you're having all of these tensions with Russia, why wouldn't the Biden administration go and talk to Trump? I mean, well, we know why he didn't talk to Trump for the insurgent, what's going on with the insurgent. But why wouldn't you sit down and talk to this man who has had some type of diplomacy with him, with Russia? You want to chime in on that?
Well, I'll wait.
Mr. King, you want to chime in on that? Did you hear that?
Well, you hear the story of Putin, what he's worth, almost $200 billion. No one can actually put their hands on it. But so much access that he has around the globe that it's only fitting that whatever conversations that he's had, it's a strategic move. You can't tell me that, I'm sending troops in because I feel that parts of Ukraine is being part of a Western allies that's being built on that side of the globe, and that you're fearful. So now it's almost like Mayor Adams saying Riverdale is meeting with people in Westchester, so I'm going to blow up where to protect where Manhattan College is, to make sure the people who go to Kennedy High School over by Riverdale don't leave the Riverdale section of the Bronx. I'm trying to understand the reality of those conversations. There's a strategic move of why they want to take power, and if you want to keep Ukraine part of Russia because you say, hey, it's part of us, then blowing parts of it up doesn't make sense for me to keep me in the house. You know, you're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So whatever engagements that they're having, whatever conversation, it's all about resources, it's all about money. Because I learned so-called white man, they don't do anything on this planet unless it's a financial benefit or powerful. They're playing chess, a power game that they have going on. So while we may never know the real story, because it's about smoke and mirrors, and whoever knows whatever else is in the pipeline, because I heard you say earlier, we went from the pandemic into a war. So when they do things like that, you're in my right pocket while you're dancing on the rest of the pockets, taking everything else. We shall yet know what the end game is going to happen with this whole conversation. So when I hear President Biden talk about we're putting hard sanctions on Russia, that's going to only affect Russia, and it's not going to be having to have a minimal impact on the United States. You guys can't figure out sitting at the table that something is wrong here, and if there's really a war here, you're not going to get involved in everybody's home problem. But you guys are supposed to be world leaders. If world leaders don't make decisions about the next world leader, saying, okay, you get this one, we'll get the next one. All right, you got this one, we get the one next year. You get this one, next time it'll be our turn. That's when you got different wars all over the place by these 10 common markets that run the country, run the world. So, sister, I give it back to you.
Mm-hmm. Also, traditionally, when, we're coming into the midterm elections, and traditionally you go to war if you want to stay in office, right? Yeah, exactly. So I've watched this administration, and this is the problem I have. Again, there's a lot of firsts for Black Americans under this administration, right? We just got the Ketanji Brown Jackson as a Supreme Court nominee.
We're going to talk about that later, too.
Bunch of people that were nominated to Homeland Security positions, a lot of positions.
Right.
So we've got a lot of firsts. But I think that we have to, again, Jay-Z, move past the first of African Americans in certain positions and now look at the group. Right? So for the longest time over history, we could only get one.
Right.
Right? But now we have more. Because we only could get one because it was only one that graduated at the time. It was only one that did this at the time. But now we have plenty. So the days of just give us one African American first are over. And I think that it's in our mentality that they're now telling us, well, we're giving you a Supreme Court justice. Continue to vote for us, and we'll worry about your struggles in America later. He talked about the Voting Rights Act. He brought that up, right? And all these things, all these distractions in the middle when Biden's numbers started to plummet and African Americans started talking outside of Biden. See, what you got to understand is that the Democratic Party cannot stand for the African Americans to leave the party because we hold the party down. So if we leave, they're going to be completely just dismantled. So they will do anything in their power to keep us there, right? And so the pandering has worked over the years. You ain't black if you consider and vote for me. Are you black now that it's $100 a gallon of gas? But we wasn't black. Listen, I'm not black, okay, according to him.
Right.
Because I didn't vote for him. And if somebody is saying that to you, that's a mental lashing. That's PTSD that they're putting in. And they're abusing our vote.
Absolutely.
So while I say that the Republicans might not have, quote unquote, our best interest at heart at times, I think that this is our negotiation tool to get right in America, Republican or Democrat.
We're going to listen. We get into this heated conversation, is really engaged, but we're going to take a real quick commercial break and we're going to be right back. Cap and No Cap, Janaea Butler, Andy King. We'll be right back. It's all about politics.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
We're back. Cap and No Cap, Janaea Butler, Kevin C. Meggett, and Mr. Andy King. So we got three different views, but they seem to be almost in sync. You know what I mean? But before we went to break, we were talking about the ending of the mandate, the Ukraine. You know, like a lot of people don't realize that we're sitting right now as we speak. America's simultaneously bombing Somalia. So, you know, we need to look out and pay attention to that too. Those are what you call distractions. You know, when we were at break, Janaea was telling me, you know, our 2022 budget is $7.2 trillion. 10% of that goes directly to the Department of Defense. So that's a little bit, that's close to, how much is that? 7.2 trillion, that's 700.
10%.
That's 10%. How much is that? Is 700 billion?
I think it's 785 or
billion dollars?
Billion
dollars. $785 billion goes towards the Department of Defense. And so you got to ask yourself, you know, shouldn't the Department of Defense, and to quote my good brother Tupac, the war is right here. We need, you know, shouldn't the war be on poverty? You know, shouldn't the war be on education? Shouldn't the war be on?
But we've got spending money in those areas too. So if we want to lessen the amount that goes to war, we've got to put the right people in place that'll go and vote against, you know, lessening the budget.
Right.
But you know, big Republicans, of course, are big on military budgets and, you know, and having the military budget to fight, and because they're about going to get some money.
And I'm on the fence with that because as a veteran of a foreign war, I served in Iraq. I want our troops to be safe.
Okay.
The reality of that becomes they don't take care of veterans, you know, especially like, and I always say this, Vietnam vets, they get a raw deal because Vietnam, one, they don't call it a war. They go out of their way and call it a conflict. But a lot of those veterans that try to get service connected because of PTSD are really denied, and that's almost the other shameful part. So they need to cut down some of that $700 billion, $785 billion, and put it into veterans to rebuild the country. I mean, you go to different countries like Bahrain and all of these places, and Dubai, and these countries are beautiful, and our infrastructure is just as raggedy. But they're trying, they're actually, and they're doing it right in front of our eyes. They're fixing the problem by displacing us. Mm-hmm. And neither Democrat nor Republican really cares, but we got to care enough to put this issue on the table. But we're so fragmented as a people that we just, you know, the only time it seemed like we could agree is to disagree. And that's the mentality we have to change. What do y'all think?
I think when you're talking about this budget when it comes to military, I did a King Talk show last year. I was out on one of the Air Force bases, military bases in Colorado.
Okay.
And I was taken on a tour, and the billions of dollars that was spent in tech, I think it's only 2 of them that are in the United States. I mean, when they went after, when President Obama, when they killed, what's his name?
Osama bin Laden.
Osama bin Laden. This is where all his data was coming from. So it's not only about manpower, it's about the technology, it's about the futuristic technology, the space engagement that they have going on that we don't know. Hollywood tells the story, but since it's so it's so entertaining, we don't look at some of that stuff as accurate depictions of what's actually happening here in real life. But what I was exposed to and what I was told, talked to, what was shared with me was mind blowing. And I understand the millions and billions of dollars, the billions of dollars that is being spent, not only just to protect this country, but to control the world at the same time. So when we start talking about how do we take funding out in Washington, funding from Washington is not going to change. Again, and I'm not insulting anybody, but we do know to be a United States Senator that you have to be an attorney. And the United States Senators are the ones who passes the laws. And when you talk about Congress having a voice, well, Congress was established to give people a voice, but unless the Senate passes it, it's just a conversation in Congress. So, it's understanding the system that's in effect and who actually running the country. And again, I go back to the global markets of the 10 countries that are actually running. So they're in sync all the time. And again, it's a chess game. You remember the old movie called War Games? Mm-hmm. And with the computers was going back and forth. Mm-hmm. But it's a reality that occurs that is just to the level of the 25th power that the everyday person can't identify with unless it's a Hollywood creation. So when we start talking about how do we change the dynamics of this war, and again, war is a strategic move. Thank you for bringing that to Janae, for bringing that to, because when presidents come around and they're trying to figure out how to get reelected, they have to create a crisis in order, and all of it's so strategic, and we need to take care of home. We got enough issues here at home that we don't need to be trying to go out and be the police of the world, but the United States have delegated themselves as police of the world. So they find themselves engaged in so many things that take away from, hey, the pandemic showed that there's money that they can give to the everyday person, So where they choose to spend it, where they put their investments in, is based on their own ideology and their own agendas. Their agendas that they move in Washington necessarily has anything to do with what's happening in Eden Wall or what's happening in Bed-Stuy. And once we understand it and start engaging ourselves such and having elected officials who engage as such, I think we can find some solutions. But then there's some fires that will never get put out.
Mm. Well, the other thing is if a lot of us just get together, right, and put an agenda on the table, you got to remember what we fail to realize is that, and it's almost by design. It seems like the people work for politicians, where it should be the other way around. Politicians work for the people. So it's not, it's almost like we're screaming to mute people, to people that just don't hear.
But you know what the problem is, and what we see election year after year is that they want the people to stay dumbed down, right? Mm-hmm. Because if the people get smart and start really understanding that these people that are running for office are applying for a job to work for you, and you have every ability to grill this person in every way to see, sort of like when the Supreme Court nominees get in. That's how we need to grill somebody in our community, that wants to, be in our community. But the fact that we don't know the electoral process, we don't know politics, we don't understand politics in our community, they're able to pull one over our head and put anybody in office. So in the black community, all you got to do is say, this is a Democrat. Right? And assumingly, this person who is a Democrat is supposed to be the right answer. Right? But I have to beg to differ because I'm a Republican and I'm the right answer, okay? So that can't be the argument.
Hold on. I'm an independent and I think I'm the right answer.
Right, but this is what I'm saying. So that can't be the right answer is what I'm saying, is that the only answer for you is Democrat. And we know that someone, a non-traditional voter in the African American community is going to go into the polls and they're going to go down Democrat, down the line, Democrat, and most likely to the name that they've known for the longest time. So they're not even going to give a challenger who may have, a good hardcore platform. They're not even going to give a challenger that, so nothing is happening for us, right? If you don't vote, you don't count. Bottom line, because people are pandering, politicians are pandering to the votes and the people. It's a numbers game, everybody. So I need more numbers than anything. I need to hear more people. So if you're not listening and you're not going to vote, then I can't talk to you. I can't spend my money on you because I've got to get to the other people that are. And those are the people that are actually service at the end of the day, and they happen not to be us. We're just there so we don't move on to the Republican side to weigh it down.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I personally, I vote based off of issues. And just like it's your right to vote, it's also my right to abstain not to vote. And I will never let no one shame me for when I don't want to vote. Because we go through you should vote because your people died for the right to vote. No, they didn't. That's a misconception. Our people did not die for the right to vote. Our people died thinking that voting was going to change something for us, and clearly it doesn't. So it can when you have an agenda when you have an agenda on the table, and it goes back to like even with and we're gonna jump in. We're gonna go into a commercial break soon and come back to this. But what's the name of the Supreme Court Justice? What's her name?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Yeah, that's the most blackest name you could get. And he went and found the most blackest person to say, "See, black people, I did something for you." Meanwhile, we're not asking for that. We're asking for something tangible in the name of resources like reparations. That's what we're asking for, and this is what we get. And now come the midterm and the general election, you're gonna say, "See, black people, we did something for you." And this is one big nothing burger. I don't know how should we even celebrate her? Who wins here? Is it black women that win? Is it black people that win, or women in general? Can someone answer that?
One of the things that I think does a disservice to the black race is, like you said, when they want us from the start, you are first and whatever. While we've been the ones who built this country, taken care of this country, managed the country, and even managed them and their families, even during our enslavement, which we are still enslaved, our enslavement in our early days, where the black mother nursed the white baby at the same time. So we're still nursing them. So to put a black sister in there who should have been there, we should have been part of this whole process. But it takes me back, and you got to go to break with this. It takes me back a little bit about.
We got a little bit of time, but I could definitely hear your point. Go ahead.
It takes me back to the point of the United States Constitution and talking about the 3/5 clause that said we weren't equal from the start. So if you have a system that says that black in these countries are not equal from the start, there's no way you're going to make us equal. I don't care if I'm a Democrat, a Republican, an independent, or human. You're not going to make me equal because your rules of engagement said whites up here and blacks are down here. So how do everything, whether it's housing, economic, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's the judicial system, whether me getting a raise or not getting a raise, and the greatest thing that kills the black family, and I gotta call it. You said, is it good for blacks or is it good for women? One of the smartest things they did when they killed the civil rights movement is they came up with the women's rights movement, because then you took all the sisters who forgot they were black and they became women, and white women's issues were different than black women's issues. But so how you gonna put us all in the mixing part, and then you just destroyed all the strength that the black family and the chips that we were building as a family in the community? Well, our essence was that we needed to be together. Now today, a black woman can say at any moment in time that not only the brother, because the brother's all flipped up in the game. Well, that just didn't happen because he woke up and said he wanted to be irresponsible. Well, we go back to that 3/5 clause that set the stage. And each and every day, this system reminds us on any given Saturday or Sunday where we are on the plane of equality. I don't want to say equity because we're not even equal on anything. So I'm going to let you go.
It's real funny you say that, Mr. King. I really got to dive in about the black movement was replaced with the feminist movement. And you got to remember, black men and black women were coming out of slavery together, and for the most part, we were doing everything we were expected to do. So the feminist movement, that was the white woman with the problem with her white man. So we should have, you know, like, I'm gonna tell you what word we should have ran away from a long time ago. The word minority. We should have ran a long time ago from that word, because when they did the whole affirmative action, who benefit from it? White women. White women have never been separate from her white man. So the whatever tangibles and resources that we thought we were going to get under affirmative action, which never really worked. It only benefited really white women. And they got the resource and benefit because they considered them to be a minority. But together, as a collective, we were coming out of slavery together in the 40s and 50s. We had the household was tight. We had a family value. It was only when we started to get, when they developed welfare, and the movie Claudine would depict it. They wanted Uncle Sam to be the black woman's man, and then in order to get any kind of resources, you had to get rid of the man.
That's right.
And replace of whatever resource. But now, how is that working out with the privatization of most of these projects? Because most of the projects, let's face it, most of the projects was single black women who were getting those apartments.
Yeah. Well, you know, you mentioned something. I just want to jump in and add, you know, when I was in the council, Charles Barron made noise, and I understood what he was saying. Charles Barron was a great voice, but he was a singular voice. So sometimes he became a messenger that no one wanted, but he spoke truth to power. And a lot of things he said came with factual facts. And I listened to the words he was saying. And I learned through the MWB process that they have in the city of New York, it was a way again to have the white man, because the W allowed the white woman to get into the room, whose still businesses was part of the white husband, the white man was still using the white woman to get access. You still look at the contracts in the city of New York, how black women and black companies still was getting, like, that's still 3% of all the money that was coming up through the MWE program. So you're talking about a system again that says we are not equal. How do we have this conversation about being equal? I go back again. In 2017, I was able to get the city council to pass a resolution for March 5th to be 3/5 clause of Wednesday Day, but also calling on a resolution to tell Congress to amend the United States Constitution, to saying that the black in this country is equal, 100% whole. You can't start out a rule of our engagement saying that you're here and I'm here, and then every time we get to talk, there's never a conversation that brings us like this. Right. And then we try to wonder why we're fighting this conversation and having that conversation, and we're never ever on the same playing field, from whether it's in Minneapolis or it's in California or it's in New York or Texas. Every time you turn around, they show us and demonstrate we're not on the playing field. And I started, IE goes back to the same black kid who was in that engagement with that Spanish kid that looked white in the mall in New Jersey last week. And after the altercation, the cops ran in, grabbed the black kid, threw him on the floor, put him on handcuffs, and then take a little white kid and sit him down and ask him he's all right. That's the reality of America. So I don't need to know about Ukraine when our fight is still here in the United States of America.
I agree. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna take a real quick commercial break. We're gonna come back. It's all about politics. Cap and no cap. We'll be right back.
Millennium TV, bridging communities worldwide. We broadcast diverse international content from Europe, Asia, Africa, and now right here in the USA. Watch us via Roku on your smart TV. Submit your own content to 1530entertainmentllc@gmail.com. Download the Millennium TV app from the App Store to stream our shows anywhere, anytime. Millennium TV.
We're back, cap and no cap. We chopping it up. This is it's hot in this kitchen right now. But before we went to break, Mr. King said a lot. You want to thread in?
Yeah, because let's go back to Dr. King. We just celebrated his birthday not too long ago. We're in the middle of Black History Month. And Dr. King, I worked with Reverend Jesse Jackson for the last 15 years and really have been able to be by his side and really learn a lot through him and really understand, America better. Well, if you look where Dr. King, his last stance, the I Am a Man campaign, where he was in Memphis with the sanitation workers, and he had started the I Am a Man campaign. And when Andy was saying the 3/5 that in the Constitution that we're 3/5 of a person, that's what Dr. King was addressing, right? So he was saying that the people had to say, I am a man. So we went from having to say that we are whole people, right? That we have to convince somebody that we're no less than you. We've got all the things that may be even better than you, right? So Dr. King was that I am a man.
Right.
Jesse then told us, I am somebody. Okay, and then because we went from, what we've never got is citizenship. So Andy, what you rounded up for me is we have a campaign, the Hip Hop Union, Social Service Hip Hop. I am a citizen. So we went from the man, we went to somebody, but now we need America to co-sign who we are as citizens in this country, because we don't have the rights of every other citizen. You would like for us to believe that, but that's where the uneven ground is.
Right.
And I think that's where we have to carry our torch and say, when a cop looks at me, I'm a citizen of this country. Don't judge me for anything else. I am a citizen of the United States of America. And what goes is that sovereign power that you pledge your allegiance to me and I pledge my allegiance to you. So there shouldn't be an immediate, I want to kill you on American soil, because this is like being in war in another country, as if we're terrorists in our own country. And so we've got to get the country to co-sign that, yes, we are citizens of the country, and yes, we do have equal rights, and then prove it.
Well, I totally agree. And in order to, I think, achieve that objective, we have to really zero in and actually we have to classify ourselves to reflect that. And I'm gonna let you know, your same mentor, he was one of 5 other people that changed our name from Black American to African American. And the African American thing just has not worked for us at all. And the reason why it has not worked for us is because the diaspora is so broad and ambiguous that if you come from Haiti, or if you come from Jamaica, or if you come from Dominican, wherever you come from, and you come here and become an American, you can say, theoretically, I'm an African American, because they come from the diaspora. What we are is foundational Black Americans. I have probably more Indian in my family than I have anything, you know what I mean? And so,
why wouldn't you call yourself an Indian American?
But when I check off things, I do. But I'm talking about now, I'm not an individual now. I'm talking about us as a group. You know what I mean? Because it's the same concept of people say, oh, do I hate white people? Hate is such a wasted emotion. I don't hate nobody, right? There are individual white people that are pretty cool. As a collective, I think they're all rotten. You know what I mean? That's just the reality of it. But I'm not gonna. But what we have to do is create who we are. What we tend to do is run away from our exception, as opposed to run into it. We have to run to the fact that foundational Black Americans are, in fact, exceptional people to this country. And what's happening is other groups come here and they eat the marrow from off the bones of my ancestors, and it's not called out. So, there is a push right now. We used to be, I told you we should have ran from the word minority, but if we're going to use the minority word, foundational Black Americans once upon a time in the 70s and 80s, right? We were the #1 so-called minority. Everything went through us, right? So the Hispanic community has now replaced us, like Dr. Claude Anderson has projected, right on time. You know, shout out to Dr. C if he sees me. He was right on time with they were going to become the number one minority group. Now what we're doing now is shame on people like Letitia James with the anti-Asian bill that got passed, because they put Asians now in a protective class. They are going to be, they are considered the minority, model minorities. They're going to elevate them. Then you have the LGBTQ community that's going to be elevated. So now here we are, foundational Black Americans. We're going to be fourth on the totem pole, right? And we got to go through the Hispanic community, the Asian community, LGBTQ, and to get any kind of resources that is allowed to us federally. And none of those groups necessarily understand the scope of our problem. That's the problem.
Well, they're benefiting from
exactly
from us, from our civil rights push and all of that stuff. And now we don't have enough of our own foundational Black Americans that are pushing us into the forefront, and other people that are coming with. You got to understand that the Hispanics came with a plan.
Sure.
Okay.
To replace us.
The Mexicans coming into the Mexicans coming into this country, they're coming in here with a plan.
Right.
So what we need to do amongst ourselves is we need to make a truce amongst ourselves. See, we have people
that's
in
the
our
problem.
Own, but we have
we're
people
fragmented.
And we have people in our community that are blocking one another. So I can't fight them and fight you at the same time.
What's that brother's name from? He's a congressman out of Charleston, South Carolina, Mr. King. His last name is Clyburn. What's his name?
Yes,
Jim.
Congressman Clyburn.
Yeah,
yes.
Jim Clyburn.
So, like,
Yes.
a perfect example. He just gave pretendians out there the right to build casinos. These are not even real. These are $5 Indians, people that have no real lineage to Native Americans. And he's giving them the green light to build casinos out there, right? But when you push him for, hey, what about reparations for us? No, I don't want that.
Because a strong enough group is not pressing him. I bet you those Indians came in a group and said, we're going to vote against you if you don't give us this. If you don't give us this space of casinos. And he started looking at those numbers and said, they will do it. We will not. And so that's the problem. We will not do it. So you cannot get mad at them for doing what they're supposed to do. We have to be accountable for how we're moving, and we have to educate those in our community.
My family is from Charleston, South Carolina, right? They're a very, very, very small minority. So even if they said, I'm going to vote against you, if he chose to say, go ahead, it wouldn't have made an impact.
Yes, it will, because it's a numbers game. So if we're going to vote against you and we're going to give this Republican who needs a couple more points to get in another area, it's always a small group can hurt you, because a small group may open up other people and go in the other way. So I understand what you're saying, that, it's a small minority down there, but small is big. It's the fact that we don't get involved. They're scared of anything because they don't know what happens if you're moving forward. Am I right, Andy?
Yeah, and I will add to what you just said as well. You talked about the foundational Black and the lack of the strength and the energy to be engaged. I never forget that the years, the centuries of beatdown that the foundational Black has gone through in this country, and it's trickled down from generation to generation. And anytime that you get a strong Black man, and I say this with the realness of my heart, there's a difference between the Black man and the so-called Negro in this country for me. The Negro will make a deal to do whatever he got to do to survive, to sell out a brother and sister. The Black man will give his life for his friends, family, and his community. That's the difference. You know, I love the Dr. King quote, if you have nothing to die for, you will never truly live. And I say to you, Kevin, you know what I've been through. And I say, and you both know what I've gone through as being a Black man, not afraid to be a Black man, not afraid to talk for my ancestors who come from the South via the African slave trade, whether you're in the land of Judah or the 12 tribes, whatever that looked like. But you got to remember, You know, you remember the movie 12 Years a Slave?
Yep.
When that brother was being hung on the tree and all the other slaves were walking around like nothing was going on, like it was a regular day doing the wash. Because why? He was an example. They take the strongest, the best, and the brightest of you, beat you down. So I say, well, you know what? If that happens to that real black man, I got to do what? What's that statement we talked about last time? I may mess it up. The manual missions that is in the rules of thought that if a black person back then would be able to save the lives of a white person or do something to get favor for a white person, they would get their freedom. This goes back into the days of the Constitution. People don't talk about that.
It's funny you say that too, because there are people that have statues that are built in their name, black people, and the only thing that they've ever did was tell on another black person. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, and that's the reality. So when you take a small group of people who are still coming to this country, or they understand the power of a small group, as Sister Janae just said, how they can be inspiring to somebody else. Because our so-called brothers, Indians, yeah, they got their share of beat down, and their whole history got torn apart and ripped apart by who again? The same oppressors of this country. By who again? The same people who organized the Constitution. By who again? Those who claim to put a Bill of Rights together. These rules of engagement built by this country wasn't built for everybody else. It was built for that Catholic, white Caucasian who was found in this country. I'm not mad at nobody to say, listen, I'm going to take this. This is my house. I'm going to build my house. And you're not going to come in and take my living room because you want some freedoms and you want some rights. But hell, you brought me here against my will to build your house and build your living room. And then you want to kick me out in the outhouse all the time. That's the issue that I see that black folks have. And due to the fact that they've done a massive job in keeping us divided. So again, you're in America. You heard me say it before. Whether you're from Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, St. Kitts, Montserrat, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Haiti, Dominican Republic, Georgia, Alabama, the Bronx, we got Bronx. You're black in America. And if you don't understand it, you think because someone has a little twang or they share a different little color on the flag, you can't figure out how to connect in unison. So when you have blacks underneath the ground, let's look at where they believe their origin is. And if you don't feel that your origin is the same place as the brother that you're throwing underneath the bus, you will always throw underneath the bus. And I will stop here.
No, I appreciate that.
In the slave trade, when we ran, and this is getting some into the weeds right now. The fall of Israel in 70 AD. Trust me, when they ran into West Africa, those Nigerians, they knew that they weren't the same. Because Kevin, you would not send little Kev into slavery for somebody who comes over and doesn't look anything like you. So that's a clear testimony that we weren't the same people, because no one would have done that to their own family. And these are those little details in history that get lost when we start talking about, because we all kind of look alike, that we are alike. I'll stop there.
I appreciate that. Listen, real quick, you got something going on with this 3/5 clause? Where at?
Yes. On Malcolm X Boulevard and West 125th Street in front of Mount Olivet Church. We established 3/5 clause awareness day when I was in the council. For the last 5 years, we've been at the Schomburg, the Black American Black Theater in Harlem, the Mosque number 7, Hostos College. Last year was virtual due to the COVID. This year we're coming back strong. We're going to be out. We're asking, urging everyone to join us 1 o'clock this Saturday, March 5th. It's going to be an hour conversation with a number of speakers talking about the essence of how this clause in the United States Constitution still has a very influence on everyday policy and how do we live, that people just think either they ignore it or they don't even know. I spoke to another elected officials don't even know about the 3/5 clause in the Constitution. That's a reality of who we're electing into office. But how do we get better as black people by educating us and educating the masses? You can't ask somebody to change something they don't know anything about.
I appreciate you guys. But so listen, we may have to do this again. We're out of time.
Absolutely.
Had a ball with you, man. There's a lot of things I wanted to touch on, but we'll do it again next week. I'd like to thank Cap and No Cap giving me this platform. Again, I said if I didn't have this platform, I'd probably be laying on someone's couch. Download us, Millennium TV 24. We're on most streaming platforms, your iPhone, Android, various streaming devices. And we'll be back again next week. And don't forget, advertise with us, because we need those advertisements, man. That's where we keep the program going. We're bringing good content. So I want to thank Millennium 24 And see you next week. Peace.